Oh, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. This is episode number 583, and it is going off so far swimmingly and without a hitch. I like to say everything is just such a well-oiled machine over here at Rec Poker. Unfortunately, we hit a couple technical difficulties right off the bat. We're not streaming this one live on YouTube, so we're not going to be able to be playing some of our games with the YouTube chatters. We also managed to screw up the audio cues. We've had some fun Zoom link interactions. So let's just get right into it. This is an exciting week already. We've got Justine Arnwine here on the show. I can't wait to talk to him about all his success in the poker world. But first, I have to, I guess, introduce myself, the crew, in the show. So my name's Jim Reid. I'm Bluff Serini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on Twitter. And if you're a regular listener, you know I've got the best freaking job in the world, hanging out here with my friends on Monday night on the Rec Poker Podcast every week, except for this week, live on YouTube at 7:30 Eastern, where you can join for free and win a prize just for showing up. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we really depend on support from our sponsors, and that's why I have to thank the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, because they are the official sponsor of the Rec Poker Podcast, and you can find out more about them at runaces.com. But I also want to thank like our premium members who pitch in their $15 a month, and that support means the world to us. So thank you to all sorts of premium members out there, like Joe Millay, one as an example. Also, our newest premium member, Greg Thibodeau, who just signed up this week. So Greg, thanks for your email. Welcome to Rec Poker. I'm sure you're going to find something fantastic for your $15 a month. And folks, if you want to join for free, most of what we do here is free. Come on up and get a free community account. All it takes is an email address and a smile over at rec.poker. But if you want to go premium, you can get your first code for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. Now, you get used to hearing my voice because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I am just a small piece in the Rec Poker machine. It takes a group, a gang, a crew to make the magic happen here at Rec Poker. We call this gang of wizards the Wrecking Crew. Of course we do. And if you want to find out more about me and the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew. But you're going to also meet a few of them tonight in alphabetical by first name. So jump on in, Wrecking Crew, and introduce yourselves to Rec Poker Nation.
So my name is Joe Coolis. You can find me at Joe Cool PhD, cool with a K, on I guess Twitter as it is, and Blue Sky or Elvita11 in the home games. My responsibilities here is I run the monthly meeting for PsyOps, which covers psychological concepts that impact you at the poker table.
I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek and Man Everywhere, and I run our home games.
And I'm Rob Washam. You can find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere. And on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, you can join me and a bunch of our premium members as we discuss the latest poker books.
Those just a few of the Wrecking Crew members. Of course, most of us have day jobs, or like Rob, we're retired, so we've got things pulling us in other directions. But like I said, head on over to rec.poker/crew, and you can find out more about our fantastic leadership panel here at the Wrecking Crew. Justine Arnwine, thank you for sticking with us. You've seen us, you let me get through my rambling patter. We had technical difficulties, audio miscues, but here we are. You finally made it. You're here, episode 583 of the Rec Poker Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Now, folks, regular podcast listeners might know about you already. You've been a guest on the Thinking Poker Podcast. People, if they're on poker Twitter, they know about your fantastic success as a tournament player in Las Vegas. But don't let me put you in a box. If folks haven't heard about who Justine Arnwine is, take a few minutes and just sort of describe your own role in the poker world today.
Okay, so anybody who knows me from before anyone had heard of Caitlyn would have known me primarily from cash. Like I played cash almost exclusively from 2005 through 2018. And I used to the joke was that like I lived in the casino because I would play 3, 4, once a 121-hour session, and I would the other thing is that in order to avoid misclicks, I played in nothing but $5 chip denominations. And that was in any casino. Like even when I went to Commerce, it was just nothing but yellow back when their chip, when I went there in 2015, their chip was a yellow chip and I had all yellow chips. And yeah, so that's what I was known for. And then in 2017, I got hit by a car when I was crossing the street. And when I tried to play like an overnight session, it was physically like impossible. And at the time, my hand never healed completely. So like there was a whole like a 18-month period where I didn't even shuffle a chip.
Hmm.
But it was very unclear if as to like would I get better to the point where I could like, do those long sessions again. And I was like this close to I did everything but sign on the dotted line for enlisting into the Navy.
Mm.
Like I had went
Mm.
through the entire like, take the aptitude test, go to Fort Lee, stay overnight, do the physical exam, the ear, the hearing. Like we were like getting ready to sign the dotted line. And like then Isildur won I don't know if you all remember this. It was a long time ago, like 2018. Isildur won a tournament. It was like a $10,000 buy-in. There were 1,000 entries. This is when he made like some insane call with King Rag on the river. And I was like, and I remember like they said it. They was like, he hardly ever plays live. Like he showed up and played the grueling 10-hour days. And I was like, wait, 10-hour days? Like that's nothing. I was like, oh, that's all you have to do to play tournaments? Like you just have to be able to like, sit in the chair for 10 hours. I was like, oh, okay, like let's try that. And that's what then entered like the second half of my poker career. It was literally like learning about tournaments, learning that like even if the tournament is you know, 7 flights, multi-day, it doesn't matter how long, like you'll never actually spend more than 10 hours playing. And then like when I saw that, I was like, oh, I don't care if I'm how decrepit I am, like I'll never not be able to, play for 10 hours. And then like when I found out that you get a break every 2 hours, I was like, oh man, like we're in there. And if you look at my Hendon Mob, you'll see that like there's one entry in 2009. I'm not gonna keep dumping on them because I know they want to turn their image around, but I had a horrible experience at Borgata. And where an advertised 2-day tournament, we were told to just play it out. So we started at 11 in the morning, and I found myself three-handed at 9 a.m. the next day.
Jesus.
I thought that was industry standard. So
Right.
I literally I like swore off tournaments, and I was never gonna play a tournament again until Maryland. By the time I changed my mind because of the car accident, Maryland Live is open, and I trust all these people. So I double checked with them. I was like, okay, so like this is a 2-day tournament, right? They was like, no, we swear, like it's 2 days. Like we don't want to stay here all night. And so you'll see that like there's an entry in 2009, and then there's a pure 6-year gap between 2009 and 2015. And like I did not go for a million, like I didn't just like not cash for 6 years straight. Like that was voluntarily removing myself from the tournament scene because I thought it was uniform, that like every place was like Borgata and that they could just do whatever they wanted. And I was done with it. But then once the long sessions, and I really didn't know how to play cash any other way, was not an option. Then I switched the tournaments, and then that was what made me get back into tournament poker, because I hadn't played tournament poker seriously. Like I hadn't played a multi-flight at the time. At 2018, I probably hadn't played a multi-flight since 2015.
So I have so many questions. This is a fantastic way to start the interview, and I'm sure the rest of the RecPoker crew will as well. So, gang, just unmute if you want to get in. Great background, Joe. By the way, that's very apropos. So, Justin, we'll get into a bunch of the things that you sort of teased there, but first of all, just in your own life, from a health point of view, do you feel like your body's recovered now with all these years later?
Yeah, it did. I have a history of doing this. Like every time I get injured, I'm so fatalistic when I get injured. Because even if the doctors tell you, and this time they didn't like tell me like, oh, you can get back to 100%. But even when they tell you like, oh, you can get back to 100%, like there are so many like athletes who just like, they just never are. Just to rattle off the top of my head, completely freestyling, RG3, Derrick Rose, like there are people who are like unbelievably explosive. Then they get that injury and they become good, but they're never what they were. So I'm always like extremely pessimistic about return from injury. And I was my mindset is that like if I tell myself that whatever the worst thing that could possibly happen is going to happen, then all I can ever be is pleasantly surprised. Like I can never be disappointed if I think to myself like, okay, I'll never be able to play longer than 14 hours again. Because like that's what I accepted. Like when I walked out of the hospital, I told myself like, you will never be able to sit in a casino for more than 14 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when I heard 10 hours, I was just like, oh, okay, like we're good, because like my worst case scenario was 14 hours. Right. So then like when I'd say I probably recovered fully. It was the COVID year of the WSOP, so like 2021. I'd say it probably took like 4 years to reach 100% recovery, But I told myself like I told myself like, people get hit by cars and die every day. Like, you're alive, like, you probably will never play another overnighter. And that's what I told myself. So
I love it, man. I mean, that attitude, I think, makes a big difference. And, if you hope for the worst, but prepare, or hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, like you're always guaranteed, at least in some way, a pleasant surprise instead of an unpleasant surprise. So I like that. So one thing I want to talk about, because a lot of our listeners are tournament players, what is it about the cash game style that you say, like, the only way I know how to play cash games is by these super long sessions? Like, what do you get out of the back end of those sessions that you don't get out of the front end, if you know what I
Okay.
mean?
When did you start playing poker?
Just when I was a kid, like for matchsticks and pennies with my cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff.
All right. What year was the first year you walked into a casino?
Probably like 2000.
Oh, okay. So you remember the one game with the $40 min buy-in, $100 max buy-in?
Yeah,
and
sure.
the 1-2 game with the $60 min buy-in and the $300 max, and the 2-5 game with the $100 min and the $500 max. It's like a lot of people don't remember those games, but they used to exist. Like every time I tell people you used to be able to play 2-5 with $100, they look at me like I'm saying like back in my day we used to walk 4 miles, but like no, that was a real thing. Like you only needed $100 and you could play literally anything that wasn't time rate. And it was like standard. Like this wasn't like only in Atlantic City. This was any casino. There would be 1-2 games. The industry standard was that the minimum buy-in was $60. Now, I didn't at all know that like, oh, that's 30 big blinds in the 1-2 and 40 big blinds in the 1-1 and 40 big blinds and 20 big blinds in the 2-5. I had no idea about any of that. But that's how I used to play. Like it was like I didn't care if I had $4,000 to my name or $400 to my name. My first buy-in was always the minimum, and I would not add on until like it went down to zero. Like the first buy-in, and the logic behind that was this is like there's no poker's not solved in any way, shape, or form, and it's all about like at that time getting a read on the opponents. So I found it very advantageous to sit down with the minimum, whatever the minimum was. Because then if I have a hand like tens plus or ace king, I never have to fold because I'm in for the minimum. You know? And then on top of that, it forces you to play tight. It forces you to play tight and observe the opposition. You know, so you're just doing, when you sit down with the minimum, you're just doing there is no like just getting in there with the 10-7 of hearts. Like that's not a thing. You know, the 5-3 of diamonds is just in the muck, you know, from all positions. And it's just like, it's all about just folding, watching, folding, watching, folding, watching. And then like, if you bust out and you feel like you have a good edge on the table, then come in for the max, you know, and like and act on the observed tendencies that you believe. You know, if you think that, and remember back, you'll remember if you played 1-2 there was like unbelievable sizing tail errors that people don't make now. Like people used to open with unpaired hands to $8 and open to paired hands for $17 in the 1-2. Like it was a thing. Like it was, and it was like it was like considered good. Like, yeah, because you know, ace jack is a drawn hand. So you don't want to invest more than $8. But if you got two queens, then you got to make sure that you clear the field of the riffraff. Like that was like the consensus belief. Like everybody was doing it, like making it 8 with ace queen and making it like 17 with queens. And I was a little ahead of the curve in this aspect of when I played 1-2, I just always made it 12. Rather I had ace queen or kings, like I just always opened to 12. And like that was like that in itself, right? The fact that like I was playing tens plus ace king, you know, that I was always opening to 12, not doing the 8-17 stuff. Like that, just that, like you could literally go, if they offer 1-2 today, you could go to a 1-2 game and you could just do that and you would have an edge against, you know, at least 2 people at the table. And like as long as you put your money in against those 2 people, because poker isn't a game where you have to be 1 of 9. You only have to be 7 of 9 and then play against 8 of 9 and 9 of 9. You know, and like you can still win. It's not like cross country or track and field. Like, you know, there's no ducking Usain Bolt in the 100-meter dash. But like in poker, you're literally allowed to go, is Usain running? Nah, I'll take next heat.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the only game where it's the only competition where you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, so that was like, I'd say that was I don't think I was like super good in 2007, but I definitely bought in for the minimum on my first buy-in. I paid very close attention when I wasn't in hands. And I wasn't looking for like people's neck posts or anything like that. I was just looking for like, when you make it $8, what do you turn over? And it's like, if I see you do it enough times and never turn over a pair, I'm like, okay. Like, so I always have the green light when I have tens against you and you make it $8. Like it was just little simple edges and I just pressed them. But it takes a long time to accumulate money doing that. So you have to be willing to sit there for like bare minimum, I'd say 16 hours. To have what if someone bought in to the max and they pressed every available edge, they can probably accomplish that in 4 hours. But if you're gonna buy in for the min, and only press the cautious edge, it's gonna take you like 4 times as much to, have a 300 big blind session.
And then you're a more experienced player, so the longer you have the table with the same players, you're going to figure them out faster than they're figuring you out. So you can start with little money on the table, and then as your edge kind of develops, now there's more money on the table, and you can use that edge better against those players. Is that part of it?
Correct. Yeah, I say you nailed it, because when you buy in for 100 and you get 100 to 300 and it took you 4 hours to do it, it's like you value that 100 big blinds. Like you really, really value it. Like for someone to be, me and my friend had a rule. It was like, if we came to each other and told each other we busted on our first buy-in, we would be like, oh, so you lost with 2 pair plus, right?
Yeah, right.
It was like, that was our rule. Like we always had top pair beat if we busted.
Yeah.
Like it was like mandatory.
I love that.
Like you couldn't even come to your friend with your head held high. Like if you lost to like top pair queen kicker, it was like,
Right.
What are you doing? Like, why didn't you vote?
That's awesome. So we've already hit our second technical difficulty of the day. My earpods stopped working, so I hope our listeners didn't have any interruption in the interview so far. But we're really firing on all cylinders. Chris Jones takes 1 week off as producing co-host, and the whole freaking show falls apart. Speaking of the show falling apart, Joseph Koulis, you had something I think you wanted to add next.
Yeah, so I heard your interview when you were on the Thinking Poker podcast, and you said something that made my head snap around a little bit, which was about patience. That you felt that anytime you had a cash table, if you were patient, that you could make money doing it. And I guess listening to what you've been saying now did you mean that in terms of patience and just enough time so that it's like the length of the session would get there? Or would you say it's more patience in terms of not making a ton of plays when you sit down at the table and just kind of waiting for the game to come to you? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I wouldn't recommend this today, but I can tell you what I did in 2009, which I'd say is when I was having that was the time when I would play 1-2 and I was buying in for anything between 150 and 300, and I literally would not cash out until I had 2,000 in front of me. Like I played however long it took to get 2,000 in front of me. Like if it's 6 hours, I mean, wonderful, but that almost never happened. Like it was like a early session would be 20 hours and like a long session would be 60 hours. And one of the ways that I kept my sanity during that process is Alicia Keys had an album out, The Element of Fire. I think this might have been the album that has This Girl Is on Fire, but I don't quote me on that. But the album is called The Element of Fire. I had a CD player. I had actual headphones. I don't wear headphones at all today. I do not recommend it. You need to pay attention to people's mood and state of mind. But in that that's more so for tournament. In cash, you can really be in your own world. And I would just you remember when the CD used to end and it would literally skip back to the beginning. So I told myself I think it was one every, I want to say there's 17 tracks on that album. I think my rule was one every 4 songs. It's perfectly fine to fold as long as 4 songs, as long as you look down at the CD player and it says track 4. It's well, what do you expect? There's nothing wrong with not playing a hand until track 4. And then even if that hand was everyone limps to the small blind, you complete with 10-9 of hearts, and then you check fold on king 4. It's like that counts as playing a hand. You know, like now you're not allowed to whine until you get to track 8. And like that was my method for it. Was like, as long as you play one hand every 4 Alicia Keys songs, you're on pace. It's like that's all it takes. Like if you keep doing that and you listen to this album 5 times, like you'll have won $1,000.
Alicia's keys to playing poker well. I think that's interesting from recreational poker players, because so much of us, because it's not a job, right? You know, we go to the casino to have enjoyment, and then get frustrated when we don't make money. But even somebody as, you know, successful as you are in terms of the game, it takes a long time to accumulate any amount of money, particularly at 1-2 or 1-3. Yeah. And I think we tend to underestimate how long that actually takes and how little money per hour that you can really make consistently with the edges that are available.
Yeah, and like I don't think people really ever consider, because like having a win rate of 10 big blinds per 100 online is considered like fantastic. It's like when you play live, you can sit there and just, you know, fold for 30 hands straight. If you're playing 1-2, like you've lost $9. You know, you've lost $9. If you make it 12 and someone calls and you bet the flop, like you're up one, you know, you have a win rate of like 1.5 big blinds. You know, which like it just feels bad when you do it live. But like if that was your win rate online, you would be like, oh, let me load up 7 tables. Like, you know, like if you had a win rate, if you had a guaranteed win rate of like 1.5 big blinds, everyone would be multi-tabling. But it's like when we have guaranteed win rates in real life, we're just like, can someone put on the Knicks game? You know, it's like people are just like they take it personal, but it's like this is the game. Like online, it just happens like way faster because you're getting much more hands. People have a shot clock. You know, no one's going, oh, I'm sorry, is it on me? You know, but like if you factored all that into the online scene, it would be the exact same process. And I think that like I should note that like the volume that I had Alicia Keys playing on was low. Like I had the volume on low. Like the significance was just the fact that the tracks are going. You know, I still wanted to hear as much as possible, but the overall point of it was to just be able to have something to like mentally center me, like look down and go, oh, we're only on track 6. Like as long as I play a hand before we get to track 8, like I'm on pace.
So just to follow up, I mean, it's a little bit of a change, but the people that are listening to the podcast can't see that I have Hello Kitty behind me. You know, for those of you who have followed your career know that this is kind of dare I say, a trademark. And one of the things that I really enjoy about playing live when I do is actually just the characters. In fact, I'm actually worse at live because I like talking to the interesting people at the table, which kind of takes away from things. How have you experienced that? I mean, well, first, if you could kind of fill in the RecPoker listeners who don't really know about the Hello Kitty link that you have, and maybe talk about the rap that you did that I thought was fantastic. But also, what has been your experience in terms of all the different kinds of people playing over the course of 15 years in casinos up and down the East Coast? That's a lot of information. I apologize.
So, I guess I'll start with like addressing your idea of like interesting people live. Like when I started playing poker in Maryland, we had 0 casinos. There was no Maryland Live. There was no Horseshoe, no MGM, no card rooms. But what there was MarylandPoker.com. And that was like a basically like the private game scene, the way that you hear it now, where people are here like, oh, pros aren't allowed to play, and it's so exclusive and exclusionary. At least in Maryland, it was the total opposite. it was like, I mean, I guess it's weird in hindsight, but the idea was like people wanted to play with good players. Like everyone if you played in a home game in 2005, everyone would like fantasize about like, what if Phil Ivey walked in the door? You know, like it was like and it wasn't seen as like a negative. It was seen as like, oh, we would all love that. You know, like so when the first game I went to, I think was a 50-cent dollar game. I want to say the minimum buy-in was $20, and that's what I bought in for. And yeah, I don't think there was a single person at that table who was boring. Like they were all so like you couldn't find people like that. If I was to try and guess for you like what kind of people I played with when I first started, the names that come to my mind are like Marcel Luce, Umberto Brenes, um uh oh shit, I just had it. It was like all characters. Like everybody was a character. Like no one was like sitting there, headphones, shades, hoodies, not talking. Like you would just not get the text next week if you behave that way. It would be like, congratulations on your win. Like you are no longer invited. And it's like no one ever had to like actually disinvite you because you had to be invited. You had to get the text. Otherwise, you're just showing up at Jay Skill's house and he's just like, what's going on? Like me and my family are having dinner. Like you don't know when he's having a poker game, unless he tells you. And if you show up there and you try to maximize your EV, you will not be showing up next time like the other 8 of us show up. So that was like where I started, from the idea of like, you know, you better be okay with these like Steve Danneman type shenanigans. And like that was the year that he finished second. Like the year I started playing was when Joe Hashem won. And like Steve Danneman is drawing to like, I want to say it was 3 outs to a chop for like a $3 million difference in prize pool. And he just walks up and puts his arm around him and goes, well, buddy, let's see if we get there. It's like, could you imagine that today? Like someone all in, like drawing dead to 3 outs and just walking over, like putting their arm around Steven Chidwick and being like, well, buddy, like, let's see if it hits. No shot, right? Like it's just literally no shot. You could bet the house against it. But like that's what poker was in summer of 2005. Like people like that were winning $4 million in 1 week. You know, so I didn't even perceive that as a negative trait. Because Joe Hashem was kind of like loony too. Like he was winning pots and going like past the sugar, and his boys was yelling out Ozzy, 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 oi, oi, oi. Like as far as I was concerned, like 2 goofballs like won $11 million between them. I was like, what's wrong with like being jovial at the table? Like to me, this looks like a multi-million-dollar recipe.
The last time I played, I got into a conversation with a woman next to me, and she told me all about the chickens that she was raising. And I don't think I played a hand for like 45 minutes because I was just very interested in the chickens that she had. And she just sat there and she bet. She slowly lost her entire stack, and she had a fantastic time. And it's been the most fun I've had playing poker in a long time. So
I would actually encourage it if your strategy is, if you are currently in the process of knitting it up, for whatever reason, you have decided that like being a knit is the correct strategy for this circumstance. I would say like table talk, I would encourage you to talk, because when someone's talking, people don't realize that you're just sitting there and folding every hand because you're being active. Even though you're not being active in pots, like you seem like you're active. And like when you raise, people don't like, if you've been talking, if you've been participating in the conversation, you'll notice no one says like, oh shit, must be aces. Like, but if you sit there with your hoodie on and your shades on and you don't speak and you fold for 3 orbits and then you raise, I promise you, if you play live poker, someone's going to say something that they are not allowed to say, but they don't care. Like it's like they're making all their fellow jovial table mates aware, like, this guy's on the no action list. Like, like we want to lose to each other, not to like this predator shark, like, so I would encourage people, if you are employing a knit or even a tag strategy, like, try to be as social as possible. It will make it very hard, especially for the people conversating with you, to notice that you haven't played for 4 Alicia Keys songs.
And they'll show you their cards. And, obviously for me, my constant talking has to do with my poker strategy, as the rest of the RECing Crew members will attest to, that it's not clearly just that I can't shut up. But anyway, I appreciate that. I honestly, it's just a lot of fun to talk at the table. And so I certainly encourage people, because I want to have something fun to do. But I do want to see, other people are likely to have questions, so I can.
Okay, I'll get back to your Hello Kitty aspect.
Oh, no.
After,
Sure.
After, I didn't forget, but I like, no one had ever asked me that before, so I wanted to spend some time on that, like because there is this idea that is negative EV, that you should just be laser focused, that you should just. And it's like, no, I'd say it's the opposite, because when you do that, especially in 2024, like, other people are going to observe what you're doing. And you got it's like the sharks at blackjack, right? What do? They sit down, they order a drink, like, they act like it's their first time in the casino, right? They're trying to deceive the pit balls into not realizing that they know the count is +9. But if they sit there and they're like this, hit. Like, it's going to be obvious you're counting cards. So they try to act as social as possible to, like, deceive the pit balls. It's the same thing in poker. Like, you're pressing an edge. You're not technically counting cards, but you have an edge if, like, other people are using a wide range and you're using a tighter range, and they're not adjusting when you're in the pot. But if you make it obvious that that's what you're doing, they're going to put you on the no action list, aka adjust while you're in the pot. So, like, being social is one way to like balance your range. It's one way to camouflage your intentions.
I like that. You don't want to be on the no action list. I love that.
No, you don't.
You don't want to be on no action.
And there's always that guy at the table who feels obligated to let everyone know that you probably have aces. There's always the guy who's like, oh, he finally raising. I'm like,
oh yeah, there's always at least one.
Even if everyone else misses it, like, Minnesota Mike is gonna be like, hey guys, for those of you still talking about, like, what happened in 3 body problem, this guy's raising, like, make sure you fold Jack 10 off. We're not giving him action.
That's awesome. So let's talk about like tournament play, poker specifically. So you turned to tournaments, like you talked about, and you've been on a freaking tear, man. Like, I guess, was there a strategic adjustment moving from cash to tournaments? I mean, you'd already kind of had a lot of experience playing with the shorter stacks than a lot of cash players were used to, so that must have been helpful. But ICM is a different concept, and sort of like, was there did you have to reframe how you thought about the game of poker, the strategy of poker, when you started playing more tournaments?
I got very lucky in the sense of what would have probably taken a lot of people who switched I'd say in any endeavor, probably tournaments, in order to reach a certain level, you're gonna probably need, like, I would say, even like someone who was a genius would need 3 years to reach, an elite level. And I'd say that I had 2 parts of the spectrum. Like, I had the 2 super polar aspects of the spectrum covered, which was ultra deep, right? Because I never left until I literally got to 1,000 big blinds in whatever game I played.
Yeah.
Like, I do not leave cash games until I win 1,000. Like, if if I won in cash, every session is bare minimum 500 big blinds. Like I don't walk away from the table unless I won at least 500 big blinds. So it was like ultra deep is usually the aspect that tournament players are the most vulnerable at. Like I see people who they literally won't register until level 5 because they don't want to play with 300 big blinds.
Yep.
In level 1, they don't want to play with 200 big blinds. You know, like they haven't studied that. Like they've studied 60, through 5. Like they're perfect in that aspect. But like 260 big blinds, like, they don't even want to get it in with a set. And it's like I had that aspect covered. And then I also had the other end of the spectrum, which was super shallow. And I never even like thought about it that like in the 2-5, when you buy in for $100, like that's 20 big blinds. Like I always thought I was getting over, by being able to buy in for 100 big blinds at the Tropicana in the 2-5. But it's like it's not 100 big blinds, it's $100. I had 20 bigs. And when I played 1-3, like I only had 30 bigs. I was buying in for $60. And when I played 1-1 at Bally's, like I had 40 bigs. I was buying in for $40. And I used to play, like I played all those stakes like consistent. Like that's what I played in Atlantic City. Like the years that I played in Atlantic City from 2007 to essentially 2011, it was like 1-1, 1-2, 2-5, 5-10, 10-20. I never played higher than 10-20. And when I played at Atlantic City. And like that, so I had like thousands of hours of experience playing somewhere between 20 and 40 big blinds. Just thousands of hours of experience. And then I had thousands of hours of experience playing somewhere between 200 and 1,000 big blinds. So I had that aspect covered. The only gap I had to fill in was the 50 through 100 big blind gap. Like that was, I'd say that was like my biggest problem in 2018 was, how to play appropriately 50 through 100 big blinds. But then in the summer of 2019, Carnegie Mellon released the Pluribus experiment.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the Pluribus experiment, and this is like crucial, every single hand, no matter what was in the pot last hand, they restarted all stacks at 100 big blinds. Like all stacks. Linus stack restarted. Tony Gregg start. Pluribus' stack. Darren Elias, whoever. Everyone, all 6 max players, like they all restarted at 100 bigs. And it's like I think they played 10,000 hands of the 6 max. And then it was a different variation for the heads up matches. I think Chris Ferguson and Darren Elias played the heads up matches. But like Greg Merson, Tony Gregg, Linus, like a lot of like 6 max killers were in the 6 max experiment. And not only did I get to watch Pluribus, they have them all named like different people from the Pulp Fiction. So people are named like Mr. Brown, Mr. Blue, like stuff like that. But it's like the humans play plenty of hands against each other. Pluribus isn't like some maniac. Like it doesn't play like, anything close to like, it doesn't VPIP. It's not Jesse Lonis, like it's like Pluribus is like, if I had to like if no one has ever seen Pluribus play, and this isn't like I'm not like taking a side on the thing, but just in reality, like honestly, like watch the way Ali Mshurovich played final tables. Like that's how Pluribus plays 6 max. Like if you watch the old footage of like when Ali Mshurovich is winning everything, like if you watch like how he plays, like that's how Pluribus plays, which, you know, was aggressive, but it wasn't maniacal. You know, like Ali wasn't just, you know, playing blind.
Right.
And I'd say that, like, so through watching Pluribus, I had an idea of like, okay, this is what perfection is. And then I would watch the humans. And then I would be like, okay, and this is what like good enough to win is.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
so it was, you're never gonna really see anything else where there's like total perfection and like how to deviate and like still do fine.
Mhm.
You know, so I would say, like, you know, regardless of what you think of him, like watching Ali and Shurovich play final tables, like if you don't know anything about ICM, you don't like, just watch Ali, just watch Linus when he was in Trident in 2019. Like that also helped. Like Linus final tabled the 50K, and then like he also final tabled the 25K. And they streamed it. That was the first year Trident was on stream, and it was free. Like all this stuff was free. I couldn't believe more people, like, you know, but I guess it's because of ego in poker, right? Like they rather put their own inputs into PO solver and then like feel good about themselves than like, you know, watch. But I like to watch. Like it wasn't just like a discipline in me. Like I prefer that. I prefer watch. Like I've never put in an input in a solver in my life because I don't trust my human judgment. I don't trust myself to not have emotion involved. Like I'm going to like overtrain on paired flops or undertrain on paired flops. I'm gonna overtrain on monotone boards or undertrain on monotone boards. But if you watch thousands of hands Pluribus played, it's just going to occur. The board's going to be monotone. You're gonna see what it does. The board's just gonna be paired. You're gonna see what it does. You know, like that to me is you're like building in the safeguard if you just watch it and then look at what Pluribus does as opposed to what Eddie does and Mr. Brown are doing and Mr. Pink are doing.
Yep.
And then you can literally see, like, see, that's that human shit, you know, like we can't help ourselves.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, yeah, I can't believe when I think about when Pluribus came out, I was like, damn, was that really 2019? Like, good Lord. We're all getting real old here. Let's talk more about sort of the human side of poker. So you mentioned like no misclicking allowed. So when you were playing in these cash games, you'd always have just that single denomination chip. I love that. When I'm playing tournaments, one thing that I started doing, because I also used to play more cash, and recognizing the pot size and everyone's stack size in real life in tournaments is super important, but it's not as intuitive. So one little misclick avoider that I started doing in tournaments was I will put next to my stack a 10 big blind stack of my chips. And then I always know immediately what 10 big blinds looks like. And it makes it easy for me to like just visually compare to other players' stacks. Okay, who's getting short, or 20 big blinds, or whatever the depth of the tournament is that makes it appropriate. Have you had to sort of come up with tournament ways to stop yourself from misclicking as well? Like, because I think we are all human, and part of being a good player is like knowing where we need those guardrails. Do any kind of come up to mind when you think about it?
Well, what I told Caitlyn to do was I said like she stacks her chips in 20 big blind stacks for whatever the level is. And I think when it gets to the last 2 minutes of the next level, she'll just switch it to whatever that next level is.
Yep.
And then the other thing I always told her to do is always verbalize your bet. Like if you want to be safe, just always verbalize. It has the countermeasure of you have no like chip bet tails.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like some people will call with all the gray chips when they don't really care if they lose, but they only throw in like the blue chips when they think that pot is coming back to them. You know, and it's like you can't really do that when you announce call. You know, like then it doesn't matter what chip denomination you put out. So I would say like that's one way to go around that, is if you do everything verbal, you'll never misclick bet. One of the things that I do, I stole this actually from do you remember the 2015 World Series that Joe McKeon won?
Sure.
You remember the guy with the red hoodie? He was like a real sore loser, but he ran deep. He lost to Joe McKeon, set of threes versus set of sixes.
Okay.
I don't remember his name. I want to say it's Justin something. He was like some young kid, hoodie. He was like very brash, but he always threw in, like when he was calling, he always threw in one chip first. And he said out loud on the broadcast, he said, I always string call so that I can never misclick. And that was like an ace I took away. And like I stole that from him. And when I switched to tournaments 3 years after the fact, I like remembered that in my brain. So like no matter what the bet is, like if someone bets 2,000 and I know all I have to do is throw out 2 yellows, I'll always take the lowest denomination chip, put it in the pot first, you know, like so that everyone knows I'm calling, and then I'll put out 2 yellows. So like whenever you call, if you always take the lowest denomination chip and just put one of them in front of your cards, you will never be held to a raise under any circumstance. And in some reality where you're completely out of it and there was no bet to begin with, you can only be held to a min bet.
Yeah.
As long as you use the lowest denomination chip.
I love that. And like we talk about, because you know most of our audience is recreational players, so we talk about like string betting and forward motion and announcing your action and announcing, you know, the amount and the size of your bets and raises and that kind of stuff. Because what we want to do is just like remove the ambiguity so that there's no confusion, so that we can't get angled, so that no one else can make a mistake, and to speed the game along, of course. But I like that. I really like the idea of like the string call, because when you put that one chip in, you're committed to calling, but it does kind of lower the ceiling on how bad you know
the
how
damage can be.
This click can be. Yeah, I think that's
you're
right.
capped at, it's like when you misclick in the cash game with a red chip. Okay, you're capped at a $5 mistake.
Right.
You know, if you put in whatever the smallest denomination chip is, even if they do 5 color ups,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You're capped at a 1 big blind error.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Joseph, did you have something?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a different question. You know, as you may or may not know, I'm a psychologist, and so I tend to ask people questions very directly. So if you don't want to answer this question, it's certainly fine. But one of the questions I get a lot is how to communicate with spouses, partners, parents about playing poker, and particularly people who want to play you know, more frequent poker or even consider going pro, which a lot of the rec players do. And, you know, many of the listeners may not know, but your mom is, as I understand, a rather famous civil rights attorney in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And so if you don't mind, what was it like in terms of convincing your mom that this poker career was something that was going to make it worth in comparison to a Columbia law educated parent who was fairly well known in the Obama administration?
The simple answer is once I switched to tournaments, because they write articles about you and they report your winnings to Hendon Mob. She hated cash games. She still to this day like hates like she what did she call it? She told me I was running on the hamster wheel when I played cash. She was like, sometimes you come in and you're like, I want $1,000. She said, then sometimes you come in and you're like, I lose $1,000. She's like, where's it going? And like it hit me that in her mind, a cash game player is like a lawyer who just stays an associate. Like, I don't think she was able to view it as progressing. But in tournaments, it's like, today I went there, I played a $200 buy-in and I won. And then next Thursday, I'm gonna play a $450 buy-in where it's $100K guarantee. Like today was a $200 buy-in, $6K guarantee. Thursday will be a $450 buy-in, $100K guarantee. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm playing in a $600 buy-in, 1 million guarantee. And it's like, I can show her that on the schedule. I can show her like today, like I bought in for 200, I lost, I rebought for 200, I cashed out for 2,700, I profited 2,300. That's 11 more buy-ins. So I can show up 11 more days, buying 11 more times. And if I go 0 for 11, I break even. If I even min cash one of those 11 times, I'm in the black. And it's just so much easier to explain that to someone who views things through that kind of terms of like associate, and like the goal is to reach partner. You know, it's like when you play tournaments, regardless of like what the actual stakes are, it's like you start out playing essentially tournaments that end in one day. And the goal is to play in tournaments that take multiple days. It doesn't matter if it's 2 days or 7 days. You know, you can win like $1 million in a tournament that's only 3 days. Or, you know, you can play a tournament that's 5 days and win 30K. You know, but the goal is to go from like playing single day tournaments to multi-day day tournaments. You know, I think the $250,000 buy-in is a 2-day tournament. And first place is like 5 million.
Right.
You know, is like so it doesn't technically matter. It's just the goal is to graduate from single day tournaments to multi-day tournaments. And I think in her mind, it was like, okay, like the same way a paralegal's goal is to become an associate. And then an associate's goal is to like become a partner. You know, like, and I think like that translated, I think that just, like once I made the switch to tournaments, all her resistance just evaporated. It didn't hurt that like I won like 80K in 6 weeks. You know, like I don't think that that hurt the, like I went on this extreme heater from like July 31st, 2009 into like December of 20 until like January 2020, where it just, you know, I couldn't lose. And like, you know, she literally saw me like net profit 80,000 in like, you know, 12 weeks. And she was like, yeah, I think you should do this. She was like, yeah, I think you should do this. Like,
I don't think the advice that I can give to people when they ask me that question is, well, just go win 80K and then everybody will be fine with it. That's probably not going to work.
But she really likes being able to like follow the journey. The fact that you can see day 1 chip counts.
Yeah.
You know, day 2 chip counts. So you can like, and then she can like ask me a question like, if I don't make it to day 3, she can go, where do you think you erred?
Right.
And I can literally tell her like, yeah, you know, like I didn't have to go all in there. That was an unnecessary risk. Next time I'm not gonna do that. And then like if the variance works out where like the next tournament I play, like I run deep, she's like, yeah, because you said you wasn't gonna do that anymore. Like, you know, to her, it's like you lose a case and you realize like, oh man, like we presented the evidence wrong. Like this time we're gonna do it that way. And then like if you win the case, you feel like, yeah, that's because we made that adjustment. You know, like I think tournament poker just translates a lot easier to people who don't play than cash games do. Like my mom watched Game of Gold. Like she pure watched it. You know, like versus like, you know, she does not watch streams. You know, like, so that's just like, and like she does not watch cash streams. I'm talking about like No Gamble, No Future,
Sure.
Hustler Live. Like she wouldn't be caught dead. You know, like not if like, you know how like not if it was the last man on earth, like not if it was the last thing airing. Like she would not, you know, watch like a live stream cash game. Because she would just see someone be up 50,000, then be down 20,000, and she would just be like, "Why didn't?" All she says is like, "Why didn't they leave?"
Right. Yeah.
You know, like that's her. But tournament, she understands you can't leave until it completes. Yeah. Just like when you take a case, you're not allowed to go like, man, this client is gonna be a really bad witness. Like, I think we should just exit stage left. It's like, no, once you take the case, like you're held in contempt if you try to flee on your client. So I think it translates better.
Well, thank you. That's like I said, I won't take the 80,000 rule, but I think the tournament, the progression makes a lot of sense for people. So
Justin, you've been really good with, we're going a little over time, but I've got a couple more questions for you if you've got a few more minutes to stick around.
Yeah, sure. I'll answer the other question. And don't let me forget to like tell you about the Hello Kitty. Like, I'm not ducking that. It's just nice to, because I get asked that every day. So it's nice to like the other stuff is cool for, and since we're not live, it's like F it. Like,
yeah.
You don't have to answer it. I mean, that's certainly online.
No, it's fine. I just rather, we're not live, so we can just do this with whatever out of order.
All right, perfect. Well, yeah. So let's dive into the Hello Kitty then, just to sort of refresh, because I think you did a great job talking about it on Thinking Poker. I think some of the folks that know you more recently kind of know a bit of the story, but give us the elevator pitch version of the Hello Kitty story, because it's pretty great.
Simply put, it was a stone cold accident. I was doing one of my like 81-hour bingers, and I had like gotten like my 7th win or whatever. Like a second win, third win, like my 7th win. And I was like, okay, but if we're going to continue this on, then we're going to need to we're going to need to change clothes, because the situation is getting rather unsustainable. So Maryland Live has a mall right next door, Arundel Mills. And I got up, I walked in there, I have no concept of time. So I walk in and I'm like, man, this mall is deserted. And it's because like everything's closed. And the only person still open, he's literally packing up, is like the person in the mall who, will like print out the shirts for you.
Okay.
Like, that's the only person open. And me, like, basically like sleep deprived, just out of it. I just walked straight up to him and I'm like, let me get 3 hoodies. And I think he understands that, like, I clearly just want the blank hoodies. Like, that's all I want, like, just 3 blank hoodies. And he's like, which design? And I'm like, design? I'm looking at like Mickey Mouse and Dragon Ball Z and Spider-Man. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. Like, I just want the hoodie. And he's like, well, it's a good thing you don't want any of that, because I can't make any of that anymore. He was like, I put all that away. It's like one of those situations where you're like, show up to the Popeyes and they're like, we're closed. I mean, what do you want? And you're like, and you say what you want, and they're like, man, we don't have that. And you're like, okay, well, why don't you just tell me what you have there?
Just like get some biscuits or something.
Yeah. Instead of asking me what I want, how about you just tell me what you have? So like I was like, okay, like what is available? And he was like, that, and pointed at a leopard print Hello Kitty.
Sharp.
And I was like, you really can't just sell me the hoodie? And he was like, no. He was like, the way this business works is we have to print it out. We have to post. And I was like, okay. I was like, all right, let me get a black, a blue, and a green, and he just printed them out, and I paid for it. And I went, I took a shower, I changed, I came back down, and then I proceeded to play for like another 2 days. And then I think I played in the black hoodie first. And then like I went to sleep, and blue is my favorite color. So I was just like, I don't care what's on blue. Like, I'll wear like a blue Hello Kitty. So I just threw on the blue Hello Kitty and I came back. And I guess that was enough for like the dealers to think like this was my kink. So like they was like, oh, like because you're such a Hello Kitty fan, like here's like, this bracelet that my niece left over my house. And I was like, thanks. Yeah, very great. You know, like, and I'll wear it, you know, like, and then someone was like, oh yeah, like I've noticed you got Hello Kitty, but you don't have the socks. Like, you know, my daughter like has these, and I was like, thanks. But it was all unopened stuff. So
Oh
I was
yeah.
just like, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm like trying to be polite, like not be rude. Like I don't, you know, I'm just like wearing the stuff, and then you know, like people started, then like it transferred from just the dealers to some of the players. Was like, I was in Walmart and I saw this and I thought of you. And like literally without spending a dime, I had like a baby collection, you know, just from people giving me the stuff. And I was, you know, by the time I had worn the green hoodie, I was gonna be done with it. But I'm walking out of the elevator and I see this lady, and like I'm almost sure, like some baccarat player, I'm almost sure that I've walked in the same elevator with this lady, and she like scooched all the way over to the far end and like clutched her purse. But this time, like she sees me, she doesn't even recognize me, and she's like, "Oh, you like Hello Kitty?" and like starts talking to me about her niece, and you know, like she's like waving her purse in front of me, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And then like same thing at the grocery store. And I was like, this is interesting as like a psychology experiment. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this seems to be, and I noticed that like, you know, people who didn't know me just felt very comfortable. It was like I had friendly tattooed on my forehead
Mm-hmm.
when I was wearing Hello Kitty. Like people
Mm-hmm.
were just approaching me as an individual, you know, not as like one of a collective, and whatever view they had of the collective, they were transferring that view on to me. It was like the Hello Kitty was giving me a fair shake to, you know, present to them who Justin is. So like most of the questions I get asked always is this just for poker, or do you actually wear this like outside? And it's like, no, like outside of poker is the whole point. You know, like that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like when the police pull you over when you have a broken headlight and they see two Hello Kitty teddy bears in the back of the Lexus, it's like they just come and they just speak different, you know, as to like the other approach of like, how do you have this Lexus?
Right.
And it just, I noticed it in all aspects: women, men, black people, white people, Spanish people, like the whole spectrum. And like gay people, straight people, like it didn't matter. Like Hello Kitty was uh a disarming,
Mm-hmm.
like it disarmed previous stereotypes. Like they were trying to figure out who I was. And I was like, you know, cool. I guess we'll I guess, and you know, until the world changes. I mean, I don't think the world will change enough in my lifetime to the point where like, you know, I can wear like jeans and a hoodie and not be viewed a certain type of way. So I was like, this is, you know, it's not the ideal solution, but you know, sometimes when you play against someone, if they're going to three bet you every single hand, it's like you just have to stop opening Jack Nine of Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to, but if they're going to three bet every single time, like you're just pissing away money. If you know, like if people are gonna judge you without even knowing you, like if there's a way, to lower the amount of prejudice,
Mm-hmm.
then you know it's a small inconvenience to like change my wardrobe from Jordans to Hello Kitty Converses. Like,
I like that. Joe?
I just want to say real quickly, I've always, you know, the social justice issues aside, I've always loved that story because my father had a very similar experience where there was one day he said he liked a frog, like a little frog, just kind of off the cuff. And that grew to people giving him more and more frogs until such time as there is not one room in my parents' house that does not have frogs of some sort. And we all thought it was like he was like so into frogs. And we asked him, and I was finally old enough, and he said, yeah, they're okay, but people just keep giving them to me. So very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe, that's actually my mom has exactly the same story. our house has literally frogs everywhere. Everywhere. And it's because like there was one frog once, and she said like, "Oh, thanks," and then like left it on a shelf, and now it's like the gift. Our house is full of little frogs. I wish we were doing this live on YouTube. She'd be lit. She'd be tuning in and hearing your.
I've always said there was something about your mom I liked. So
yeah, there we go. You guys have more in common than you even knew.
I'm glad you said that. You triggered something. Like when my grandmother was alive,
Yeah.
like she did remark, she was like the final straw. She said, like, I'm so glad you don't dress like a hooligan anymore. And then like you wear that nice little kitty stuff. And I was like, Hello Kitty. Yeah, that's what I said. You know, like that was kind of I was like, okay, like if it works on my grandma, like I guess we got something here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you, Jess. We've got two, so we're going to end the official interview segment of the podcast. Now we've got two segments I want to run through with you. And Justin, normally we mention this to our guests in the pre-production, 5 minutes before we go live, but we never went live. So I didn't actually go over this with you, but there's two segments we're going to do now. One is called Stake, Study, Stack. And that's like Kiss, Marry, Kill from when you were a kid, okay? So I'm going to give you three names. You can choose one that you want to stake for a poker tournament or cash session, one that you want to study with, and one that you just want to stack them for all their chips at the table next time you're playing with them, okay?
Okay.
The three names are Caitlyn Arnwine, Landon Tice, and Jeremy Becker.
Stake, study, stack. Okay. I want to stack Caitlyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to, this might sound surprising, but I want to stake Landon and study with Jeremy.
All right. Good one. I was hoping you'd have a chance to sort. I always like to make it a little awkward for people. Like, let's pick someone that they actually have a relationship with. And
yeah, no, Caitlyn keeps track of like how many times she's knocked me out of tournaments, and like she's too up on me. So like, yeah, I definitely want to stack her. And like, I don't think studying with Landon would be too beneficial because it can't be too much difference than like the way really good people online who show themselves studying solvers do, like people who know what they're doing. But like I would stake him, like he's he's clearly plus EV. And Jeremy, I feel like that would be the most likely person who I would like learn something new from. Like I'd be like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like
nice.
So I would, yeah.
All right. Well, then the last thing we're going to do, this is our speed round. We call it closing the action. So I'm just going to give you a bunch of questions all in a row, real fast. You can pass. The goal is I want to hear like a quick answer, just the first thing that pops to your mind, a short answer, or you can say pass. And we have a buzzer. I might play that if we're just going to skip it and move on to the next one because it's taken too long. Okay?
Okay.
All right, most of these are to do with poker. We're going to start with an easy one. Justine Arnwine, what is your favorite poker hand?
Queen 8 of hearts.
Ooh, nice one. Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill game.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Tanking when you know what you're going to do.
Good one, I like that. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I don't think you should watch it on Christmas.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I guess so.
What's one thing you're afraid of?
Ruin.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Busy.
Is a royal flush a straight flush?
Yes.
Who's one player that you respect and why?
Annette Overstad. Because she won everything online at a time when online was viewed as inferior to live. And then she showed up on a week before her 19th birthday, and she won the World Series of Poker main event Europe, the main event, and was like, "Yeah, I can play live too."
That's great. I love that answer.
And she won a tournament blind. Like,
Oh
she's
yeah, that's such a cool story. That's
she's
such a
just
cool story.
like, yeah, I'm a big fan.
Good one. Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Slow down unless you're late.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
No chop.
And who is your poker nemesis?
Oh gosh. I don't think you've heard of them.
That's okay. We don't have to have heard of them. If there's someone at the top of your list, that's the name we want.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna cop out. It's the alternate list.
Oh,
My nemesis is the alternate list.
right. Well, that's the end. That's the end of the speed round. Tell us just a little bit why the alternate list is your nemesis, and then we'll wrap this up.
Because when you rebuy, it's like you always have like kind of this like fire in the belly, like you're ready to like get back. You know, you got it in your mind that you okay, but then when they tell you like we'll let you know when the seat opens, it's like open-ended. It could be 2 minutes, it could be 20 minutes. It's like you I've noticed that like when I sit back down again, it's like that passion, that fire, it's gone. Like whatever fearlessness, like there's a benefit to rebuying where you kind of like you're willing to throw caution to the wind. Like someone jams on you, you look at sevens, you're like, okay, let's do it. Like that's an advantage in some, because if you were clear-minded, you wouldn't be taking that flip.
Right.
But it's like once you've had to sit there for 20 minutes, now like, oh, okay, if I lose, I'm gonna have to sit there. So it's like they jam on you and you just look at sevens and you go, I'll wait for a better spot.
I love that. That's a grinder's answer, man. That's a grinder's answer. I love it. Well, Justin, thank you so much. Oh, let me just do some quick math here, just adding up the totals from the speed round there. Looks like 846 points. That's really good. That's a fantastic finish. You should feel really good about that one. Where can folks find you if they want to say thanks for coming on the RecPoker podcast? What's a nice thing that people can do to nice you up for coming on the show to say thanks? Where can they say
well, whenever you all post that, I guess they can just they can tweet this out if they want. I'm at Twitter at Arwine Justin and also at Mother Grizzle.
Yep.
Both those accounts follow each other. So if you find one, you found the other just by going to the followers. I'm on Facebook as Justine Arnwine. I believe it's public. I'm on Instagram, but it's not really for me. I post there probably like twice a year. But I'm on Instagram at Mother Grizzle. And I think in addition to this, sometime in the next week or two, the Chipperies Poker Podcast. I did
nice
interview with them. So some of the stuff we didn't get a chance to get to, I talked about there. That's why I didn't mind, that we didn't cover certain things, because those were the things that I knew I had spoke about on there.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's a great show. An award-winning podcast, in fact. So you're really working both ends of the spectrum this week then, I got to say, Justin, between Rec.Poker and the GPI voted best podcast of the year. Congratulations. You're a man of many talents and great breadth. So without further ado,
I do actually have like 9 more minutes. If Joe or Rob or John wanted to ask anything, I do have like another 9 minutes.
Joe, you unmuted. Why don't you ask the last question and then
Well, I just wanted I just stumbled in here, so Justin, I want to comment how much I appreciate what you shared. It was really, really interesting. I don't have a particular question. I'm just now getting started in poker, but I do appreciate a lot of what I heard.
Right on. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, Joe. Thanks for joining Rec Poker, man. And Justin, we're actually we're gonna go record the forums edition of the podcast in a few minutes, so we're gonna wrap it here anyway. But I'd love to have you back another time later on this year and talk even more strategy and cover some of those other subjects that we didn't get to. So this episode will come out on Friday. We'll tag you on Twitter for sure, and just keep on racking up those wins, man. I can't wait to meet up again. Hopefully we can even cross paths in person this summer down there in Vegas. I'd love that.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that you and Caitlyn are like this. So you can always reach out through her. Like as long as I'm alive, that's what I plan on being married to. So
Nice. That's awesome.
you can all even if somehow, some way I just fall off the map, like you can always get in touch with me through her.
Cheers. Well, you guys are both fantastic people, and it's great to get to know you a little better. And I'm already looking.
Oh, she has a women's tournament. If you are a woman or if you identify as a woman, on May 19th, Caitlyn has a women's tournament at MGM National Harbor. I want to say at 11:15. I think the buy-in's $250. They have final table mystery bounties.
Oh, I heard about this one.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
been having a lot of success with some women's events up there. It's
Yeah, she
cool to
ran one
see,
at
man.
Horseshoe.
Yeah.
That had a 5K guarantee that ended up getting to like 11,000. And then the woman who won that, Heather, I think she's like a hearing impaired player.
Oh,
She
awesome.
then won the ladies tournament at Maryland Live.
That's
So
fantastic.
Heather, if you're listening, like you should come through and try to do the trifecta.
Yeah, I
And,
love that.
Yeah, or any women who are listening to this, if May 19th, Sunday, May 19th, and no guys allowed. Like, do not be that
That's
guy.
right. Yeah.
Like if you identify as a man, like please do not show up.
Yeah, there's lots of other
My
poker
wife will
teams.
never speak to you.
Yeah.
Like she will literally never speak to you. She will wish everyone at the table good luck except you and stare daggers at you.
Yeah.
Don't do it to yourself.
No, it's true. There's better ways. There's better ways to spend your time, and it's a great cause. And I know Caitlyn's been doing a great work promoting women's events and creating more of this, these wonderfully safe and friendly places for women to play. So
And there's a bounty on her head. You knock
right.
her out at any point in the tournament, and I think you get some kind of bounty, maybe $100 or something.
Yeah, I know we're trying to help support her mission with some prizes here at RecPoker for some of that stuff too. So I hope we get a chance to continue to keep that going.
Thank you for saying that. That's what she wants me to always tell people. If you're a guy and you want to participate in the women's tournament, then stake a woman.
Yes. Yes.
Buy a woman into the tournament.
Yep.
Preferably with a fair deal. If you really feel generous, then buy them in, no strings attached. But preferably a fair deal. Like stake a woman.
Yeah.
Do not enter. Buy a woman in.
Love it. Great message. Great message. And like we said, we'll post Justin's Twitter handles in the show notes for the show, so you can get in touch with him over there and find out any more information about what he's up to or Caitlyn's exploits. And I hope you do. So Justin, thanks again. Our paths will cross again soon, I hope. And I just wanted to say thanks again for coming on the show and sharing so much of your story with us.
See ya.
All right, cheers. John Somsky, we don't have a YouTube chat to give away any prizes with tonight. Why don't you roll through the fastest ever review of some recent home game results, and we'll go start up the forums edition of the podcast in the next over Zoom room right next door.
All right, on April 22nd, Larson's opening, George Gordon got his first nightly victory for the year. Graphic 16, Roger Schutte got his first nightly victory for the year. Gopher Boy TJM Taylor got his first nightly victory for the year.
Can't be stopped.
Pet Bet 33, Kim Kilroy got her first daily mixed victory for the year. Elvita 11, Joe Koulis got his first international victory for the year.
He's on fire.
That makes 6 total wins officially more than one hand. One hand does not count them all anymore. E. Anderson 85, Eric Anderson got his first international victory for the year, and Digging 8 Graves won the LPP event. So he or she can contact info@rec.poker for their free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Right on. Well, thank you to all our fantastic home game contestants and heroes and villains out there. Some great winners, some great members on the list there. Fantastic interview with Justine Arnwine. Like I said, you'll find some of his handles in the show notes. So click on them and connect with him and say thanks for coming on the show. My thanks to Rob Washam, Joseph Koulis, John Somsky, Joe Millay snicks his way in there as well. Thanks, Joe. Nice to see you. And to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. And to everyone at home listening. Oh my God, we're running out of time. Thank you all so much. See you next week on the RecPoker Podcast. Good night, everybody. Oh.